Hi, I'm Najeda Shaputo. I live in the occupied land of the Tequesta and Seminole people, which is known as Miami, Florida. I love spending time in nature, which is why I enjoy living here because I love the beach and I also enjoy going for long walks in parks. So I love green spaces. I am also passionate about racial and social justice, economic justice, and being a part of creating a world where that works for all, being a part of creating systemic change. Even though I am well aware that the real changes that we are seeking, that myself and other people who are seeking systemic change, we may not see it in our lifetime, but it's going to we knowing that it's going to happen one day. I'm a leadership coach and a wellness consultant. As a coach, I help rising and established women leaders reconnect with themselves, find their voice, embrace who they are, be their authentic self so they could show up in the world being their authentic self and advocating for systemic change. As a wellness consultant, I help rising and established women leaders, organizers, and activists explore and find mindfulness, a radical self care practice that works for them. As an organizer myself, I am a firm believer that we cannot truly show up for our communities, for systemic change, for the people in our lives if we're not taking good care of ourselves. So, this is my last message for the year for 2022. Actually, I'm going to share two things. First thing is, as we're wrapping up the year, many of us are taking time to reflect on the year. If you've had an awesome year and pretty much everything you set out to do was done, that's great. Take time to celebrate it. Take time to, and if there's any moment that you're feeling like, oh, well, this didn't turn out, be gentle, show yourself some grace, and be present, be in the moment. For those of us who may feel that the year we had a shitty year, or things did not happen the way we thought we were going to be, or we had an okay year, be gentle with yourself. Show yourself some grace. Look for the wins, because I'm sure there were a few wins. And even if there wasn't, then it's fine. More than anything, be thankful that you are here right now in this moment. You being here is a gift. Take some time to rest, and that's for everyone. Take some time, take good care of yourself, and show yourself some grace. Know that I'm a firm believer. I know for myself there are things that I thought was going to happen this year and it didn't. So show yourself some grace and know that everything works out at the end. And just keep taking good care of yourself. And yes, there are things that we may need to do, that you might need to do for next year, then it's fine. But more than anything, don't get caught up and don't try to compare your journey to other people's journey, because we all have our own journeys. And also, even the people, recently I was in a community, I met with a community that I'm part of, and I was sharing how, because I got sick, I had COVID around after Thanksgiving, and I was sharing how, as we're nearing the end of the year, as I'm nearing a birthday, because my birthday is a few days before the end of the year, I had been feeling like my year did not turn out the way I thought it was going to go. And one of the things that I was told, and I know that it's something I'm aware of, and I was told of, I was reminded of, is that most people are having this conversation with themselves. Most people are thinking, even the people that you might be looking at, especially if you're somebody who's on social media, people share the highlights. I'm not gonna say it's a lie, just people, a lot of people, most people share the good things. We don't know, and not everybody chooses to be vulnerable, and even people in your life sometimes may not share what's really going on with them. So just know that, trust me, if you're feeling a certain type of way about the way your year went, you are not alone. And like I said, show yourself some grace. Be gentle with yourself. As you're planning for 2022, I think more than anything, I would say give yourself some rest. And another message that I want to share, which is, I felt that it's very much in alignment. I think it's important for me to share this now as we're nearing as we're like in the end of the year. People are like, for those of us who are like into shopping and buying things, and I would even say this message could even, you know, we might need it at any moment in our lives, but I think even in the beginning of the year. So it's something that I experienced something, I witnessed something a couple of months ago, where I was at a symposium, and it was a sister circle, and we were talking about taking care of ourselves. And you know, there were mothers there talking about them not having time to do certain things, or people thinking that, you know, getting a pedicure, having time for a mani and pedi is like something big. So as at some point, I was not part of the panel. I was in the audience. I shared how, while I often like to say that, and I truly believe that self-care doesn't have to be, I think self-care many times is seen as like bubble baths, massage. Bubble baths are good, but basically sometimes like how you have to spend money. For example, the mani and pedi, the massage, the trip, and how self-care can be something that you don't spend money on. And one of the things I've also learned is that for people who don't have the funds to, you know, be able to have the mani and pedi all the time, because sometimes you just can't afford it to have it on a regular basis. For some people, it's every 2 weeks. For some people, it's every 3 weeks, every month, whichever. That actually being able to do that for themselves is a good, it is a part of self-care. Is choosing to take care of you, and knowing that, you know what, I'm actually going to treat myself to that, or whatever that is. And when I said that, somebody in the panel said, well, speaking of not be able to afford something, you know, we need to be able to like afford things. You need to think about what is it that you're passionate about, what is it that you're great at, and start an LLC. Like basically telling people that they need to find other ways to generate money if whatever it is they are doing is not giving them the money for them to afford, I guess, these type of, everything that these things, or these, some people might call them luxuries or whichever. And I didn't push back because I was not part of the panel. If I was in the panel, I would have pushed back in a way, because I'm not against people starting an LLC or figure out what they want. It's just that I've also am realizing and becoming clearer and clearer, looking at how systems impact us, how people think about how we always have to be able to afford something. And if we can't afford it, something is wrong with us, or we have to experience shame, and we need to be able to create a way to afford it. And here is the thing, like, for example, I was thinking about it. Not everybody wants to have an LLC. Not everybody wants to have their own business. Or if somebody's already working a job that is quite demanding, or if somebody is working 2 jobs in order to make ends meet, I don't think people, if they don't want to, they may not want to start that LLC or whatever it is that they are being told to do. So this got me thinking about how in this capitalist system, we are being taught of like, there's something wrong to not be able to afford something. I know, like, actually, sometime this year, recently, I was thinking about something and I'm like, could I afford it? Because I've had a lot of expenses this year, and some of them were unexpected. And it is totally fine if I can't afford something. If you just took a trip, it is totally fine that you cannot afford another trip, or you cannot afford certain things that you may have to be like, okay, I'm gonna need to cut back on that mani and pedi, or I'm gonna need to cut back on eating out. And for example, for some of you, maybe in a way, you cannot afford to get certain gifts, or you're gonna put yourself in debt to get those gifts, because it's sort of like, oh my God, really think about this. Like, because do we really, like I shared the other day how love, like material gifts, does not translate into love. And I think, and maybe for example, you're gonna go and you're gonna get some gifts for the people that you care about and you love this holiday season. You're gonna be going out, you're gonna be, hosting dinners or going out to dinner and stuff like that. Maybe come January, you're gonna need to come back on some things, and it is totally fine. So this is why, or whichever. So this is why I really wanted to share this, is that there is, I think, and I wouldn't even say that there is shame in not being able to afford our basic needs. I think that we want to we want to hopefully, and I know sometimes it can happen where we cannot afford our basic needs, and still, I don't think there needs to be shame in there. I think that I would understand if we want to figure out how, ways to be able to afford our basic needs. But as far as these other things that we are being told that we need to like create ways to make that income, I just want to really say that it is totally okay when you find yourself in a situation where you cannot afford those Christmas gifts, or as many of those Christmas gifts. You cannot afford to maybe do as much as you've done in the past or you would like to do. Show yourself some grace. It is totally fine. Same thing with come January or whenever you find yourself in a situation. First of all, that's what it means to have a budget. Having a budget, unless you're like somebody who could afford, I don't know, people who can afford everything that they want, whichever, it is totally fine if you cannot afford something, because that thing that you cannot afford to get done, it doesn't determine who you are. Your worth is not determined by what you can afford and cannot afford. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Since I'm going to be sharing this with my newsletter, those of you in my newsletter, truly appreciate you. Thank you for being in my newsletter. Those of you who are not, if you're watching this, whether I post it on Instagram, I'm not sure because it's kind of long, or I post this or watching me on YouTube, I'm inviting you to visit my website, which in the description is the link. It's www.nadjedachapoteau.com. So myname.com. It's www.nadjedachapoteau.com. I'm inviting you to check out my website, join my newsletter if you find my content helpful. Maybe you want to go and check out my other content. And I am wishing you all a happy and joyful and healthy holiday season. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Those of you who celebrate, I'm not sure if I post this after Hanukkah, but happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. I am celebrating, wishing you happy whatever you celebrate, and I'm wishing everyone a happy New Year. I do know the Chinese New Year is later, so I'm wishing everyone else a happy New Year and sending you all lots of love. Take some time to rest. Take great care of yourself and show yourself some grace. Be gentle with yourself. Much love.